Welcome to Football Life. I'm your host David Sheehan. On today's show we take in all the action from the NTFA Gala Day. Rob Donnelly from the Northern Bombers gets to polish the Premiership Cup, and John X takes on Kyle Vanderkite in Footy versus Athletics. Then Julian O'Brien gets to hoe right into a steak sandwich at the Burnie canteen. But without further ado, we're talking VFL, and what a great topic it is to talk right now, with our boys having won their first game last weekend against the good old Navy Blues. Joining me for the first time on the VFL panel, the only panellist to not be a former Clarence Statewide League player. It's the General Manager of Glenorchy Storm, Shane Stevenson. Steve-O, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David.
Anthony Cole, returning star, returning from injury, fired up about tomorrow's game, mate?
Can't wait, Dave. Should be good.
And roving reporter Stoney, how did you see the big win over the Navy Blues, mate?
Well, what a great day it was last Saturday. Tasmania winning their first game away from Tasmania, which is a fantastic effort in their second game. And 5 goals to 3 in the first quarter, David. It was a great effort from the Tasmanian boys. The forwards are working well. Everybody had a contribution during the day. It was quite a good effort all day. Simon Wiggins, the ex-Tasmanian boy, playing quite well for Carlton, and will play the next couple of weeks for the that played the Tassie boy there, kicking a goal. Scotty Allen, Beaumont was there.
Kicking that one, Stoney.
And a bit of a rough tackle there, but no, they played quite well. And it was a great result, Dave.
It was a great feeling kicking 5 goals in the first quarter. What's the buzz been like this week, Coley?
Oh, it's been really good actually. The guys got together on Wednesday at Longford, and we had a really good hit out for about an hour or so. We're keen to get 2 in a row, which is what footy's all about. You can't just win one week, lose one week. You've got to string them together, and that's what it's all about.
Anthony, the forward set up in the goals there with early Scotty Allen kicking 3 goals in the first quarter, and Craig Carter working quite well with Scotty kicking a goal here. It was working quite well in the first quarter. He was seen to have, the first 2 weeks he wasn't quite with it, but this week he really sort of bounced back and had a really good game.
Oh, I think no doubt Scotty was a bit down on himself over the last few weeks, and I think he wanted to come out and kick a few goals early, which he did. I think he kicked 5 in the first half. But if you put Scotty Allen in the 50 arc by himself, probably with another tall on our side, he's going to beat his opponent to the ball because he's so fast.
And you mentioned Carter, Stoney and Steve-O. 2 questions. One, must be a bit jealous now the boys have got up in a game over there, particularly getting up in a game over in Melbourne, to not be part of it, having retired then last year, and Carter and some of the other boys, Atkins, Burns, Careless from Glenorchy, really putting their hands up for the state side.
Yeah, it's terrific to see them playing so well, and Craig Carter in particular, who's I guess over the last few years with Glenorchy hasn't been a train as regularly as he would have liked, but hearing a number of stories this year, he's put in the hard work, and that's just reward. He's kicked 4 goals on the weekend, and I think Benny Careless is playing terrific footy, and Benny Atkin, who's had a limited pre-season, is only going to get better as the season wears on, and I think Matthew Burns is in the same boat, who's also struggled with injury. So I think there's a lot to look forward to with the team, and those players are only going to get better as the season wears on.
And that must be lifting the boys at Glenorchy as well, their former teammates, their current teammates as well, really, playing for the state side, and I guess it does give regional players that bit more of a buzz around the training track, do you think?
Well, we've got a number of guys that have just come out of the Mariners that are looking to take the next step, and obviously that's the VFL team now, which they've got to aim for, and I think that's in the back of their minds. If they play well in the regional competition, they can get a crack at VFL footy.
And you can see that great feeling there as the players congratulating each other after the game, and it really is a great thing. But Stoney, they did it without the dominance of Callan and Davis, some of those other guys who have been really strong in the first couple of games. That's got to be good. Yeah,
what I thought, and I'll say to Anthony again, this week Brad had an ordinary game. I thought that the first 2 weeks were outstanding for him and Ian Callahan. And this week the Praciacs and the smaller type players, midfielders, got a lot more of the football, which is a great thing for the side, the evenness of the side to come in when those players can have not an ordinary game, but the other players come in.
Oh, definitely. I think, I thought Brad started okay. I felt he probably got a little bit tired because of the bigger ground. But I think the guy that's been playing probably outstanding is Nathan Buzz Howard. I think he's leading by example really well. He gets in and under the packs, and the other guys just seem to fall in behind him. That's my opinion, yeah.
And just turning back to last Saturday, and the big thing, we're a couple of points up at 3/4 time, and we've had this sort of half-time, 3/4 time thing in the first couple of weeks, but Matty Armstrong really started piecing it together and had some very strong thoughts about what he was going to do with the players in the final quarter. So let's go to an interview that we shot with Matty about his moves in the final quarter.
I went out at 3/4 time and I was surprised. We had a 5-goal breeze to kick with them. We were only a couple of points up there, and at the end of the third quarter. And I went out and they were really confident they could do it. They really came in, they were very joyful, talking it up and so on, giving each other instructions and so on. And so I actually started planning the last quarter about the 20-minute mark of the third quarter. I didn't really take much notice of the game. For 10 minutes I actually sat down with my board and my coaching staff, and we came up with a plan to get players behind the ball a bit more, a couple of lines, push back behind the football, talked about how 4 forwards are going to wrap up 6 defenders and how we can do that and so on. So we worked it all out, and then we took it out to the players. They took it on board. I told them to be patient. This is the way we can win the game. They had a 5-goal to 4-5-goal win, so the pressure was on. And having more players behind the ball created more run for us. Then some very special efforts from Ian Callan and especially Darren Trevena to wrap up their 6 defenders at the time. So it was a really good effort to do that, to bring the ball to the ground, then use our speed, and it worked. It paid off, and that's how we got over the line.
It worked, it did pay off and got over the line. Notice this week in the press, Paul Hamilton, coach of the Murray Kangaroos, has said that Tasmania is really going to be a force in the VFL. Question, I guess, Steve, as someone looking on as someone who's played AFL footy, do you think that's inevitable, that we eventually are going to be a strong force in the VFL?
I think we've got some terrific young kids coming through the Mariners program. That's a great grounding for the VFL players, and I think that in time, once the players play together over a period of time, train together on a more regular basis, I think you'll see a vast improvement. I think that certainly as this season wears on, I've got no doubt that the team will gradually improve, and let's hope they can make it into the top half of the ladder.
And you certainly made the comment, Coley, that we're harder at it than just about anyone else, and that's obviously going to keep there.
Well, that's definitely one of our team goals. We're looking at trying to be the hardest team in the competition, take the mainlanders, to say, by storm and go from there.
Let's have a look at some of the ins and outs of the team going into tomorrow's game, Stoney.
Well, as I say, Anthony Cole, the first one back, playing in the full-back position. McKendrick, Coley, a new player from the Bombers, and you talked to me before off the screen, and you said that he was like a Tarzan-built type player, and which is pretty good. And
I heard he plays like it too. He's meant to be pretty hard at the pill, and that's what it's all about. He's a very solidly built fella. Yeah, so looking
Luke
forward
Spears
to
also in the side there, out. Gavey, Bowring and Matthew Jones, and a bit of an unfortunate thing for Matty to get a suspension there for 2 weeks for a tripping charge, which is a bit controversial at the moment, but we'll have a look at the side right now. And not a bad side there, guys. Beaumont down there, McKendrick in a forward pocket, and he'd probably be in a bit of a roving position there. And on the bench we've got 7 players, and with Wally Hulme, you want to split?
Yeah,
Hulme.
Yep.
And also Shane Wager there also. So that's a bit of a mixed bag there, not knowing what the side is at this point.
Yeah, the interchanges, I mean, there's some quality players there, so Matty's got a few hard decisions to make. At least I'm not on it.
And one player, Matthew Waldridge, who's out tomorrow with an injury, and a quad injury, I believe, so let's hope he gets back pretty quickly.
Yeah, they say about 3 weeks, Stoney.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Just another question to Steve before we sort of wrap up for the VFL segment. Trent Nichols, you've had a lot to do with Trent Nichols. You went to primary school with him. Do you think he should be playing for the VFL side, perhaps? Is he a chance? Would he be a chance?
That'd be a question to ask Trent, I think. But look, he's more than capable of, and I think the experience that he's gained at AFL level would be invaluable for the young players coming through. And he's a terrific player. I think he'd be the type of player like coming off the bench, kick a couple of quick goals, and then give him a spell and just give the team a bit of spark. It's
great that we've got so many options with the Tassie side to bring so many great players back into this side, but it is a very big game tomorrow at the Ulverston Oval, so make sure you get down there. The Merc Kick is happening again, Stoney. Tell us about that.
Merc Kick, second round of the Merc Kick, a big thing for the Mercury, and not bad for the kids in the area from the schools there too, Dave.
Also, it's a special Anzac Day game with an Anzac trophy being awarded to the winning side on the day, and also an Anzac medal to the best on the ground for both sides on the day. So it's a great thing. It's a midday start at Ulverston Oval, Stoney. I'd like to thank everyone for coming on the VFL panel today. You'll be getting your own National Pies pack as you head out of the studio, boys. So home into that and enjoy that. Make sure you get down to the ground 12 o'clock tomorrow. Now don't go away. After the break we'll be talking regional rap. Welcome back to Football Life. We're talking the heart and soul of regional footy on Regional Wrap. Shane Stevenson, General Manager of Glenorchy, must be a pretty good feeling out at Glenorchy this time of the year. You're looking very, very strong at this stage of the season. You absolutely thumped last year's Premier's Commandy on the weekend, so you'd be looking at a flag?
Oh, I don't know if we're saying that at the moment. There's a fair bit of work to go in between now and finals time, but yeah, we're looking good at the moment. There's a good feeling around the club, obviously with the jumper change and a number of new players coming to the football club. But you know, we're looking forward to continuing our, I guess, our intensity and the way we're playing at the moment. And I think there's a lot to look forward to. Obviously,
yourself and Clarence are looking very, very strong. I mean, if you were a betting man, would you bet on a Glenorchy Clarence grand final?
Well, at the moment, you probably would. I think we're sitting first and Clarence is sitting second. So, you know, the two sides are reasonably evenly matched, and I think we play them on June 2nd. So I think we'll find out then who's going to be the flag favourites, I'd say.
Sure. And of the non-statewide league clubs, Brighton's actually looking pretty good. They've done all right, haven't they? Yeah, they beat Norfolk on the weekend, and Norfolk, of course, played in the grand final last year. So you expect Brighton to be up there and challenging the former SWL clubs, and I think that. Hopefully we'll make an interesting season with Brighton playing some good footy. Well, let's have a bit of a look at the Clarence game against Kingston, and they gave Kingston a fair hiding out at Bellarive, but you might better pick up a bit of inside action here, Steve-O. Yeah, I think Clarence certainly with their superior fitness. I mean, they were training before Christmas, and I think that's probably what's a telling factor in a lot of these games against the more regional or the country sides. That I guess the professionalism of the former SWL clubs, and you only have to look at Clarence's list with, of course, Trent Nichols and Walter Home, Gavin Cooney, class players that have played in 5 premierships over the last 10 years. So they're going to be a very hard team to beat, and I think that's where they've got the advantage, I guess, over the more regional football clubs. You've seen a couple of times, Tony, pretty convincing.
Clarence, I watched that at Bellarive last week, and you talked about Trent Nichols, and we talked in the VFL segment to Coley before about him playing. Could possibly would have a game off the bench, and I think he'd be a pretty valuable player. I don't think he only trains one night a week, Steve-O. And Gavin Cooney, a player also that trained early in the year, 2 class players, and with Wally there also, they look pretty good. Even take out those 11 players who are in the VFL squad. They're a very good club, aren't they? Well, they've had a number of kids that have come up through the ranks over 3 or 4 seasons, so they just blood their players very well. On the Brighton-Norfolk game, we did mention that as well, and bit of footage of that game, and it was a pretty tightly fought contest, this one, and Brighton, as you said, Steve-O, got up by 8 points at the end, and you'd expect both those sides to be around finals time? Yeah, I think so. I mean, Norfolk played in the grand final last year, and they're a very competitive side, and I think, as I said, I think Brighton, it's terrific. Brighton actually knocked them off. It creates a bit of interest in the competition, and I think it all goes well. They're very close here, Steve-O. The Brighton and New Norfolk clubs around about the same area. So, and you said it is a great result for Brighton Football Club, and that was the Phil Matthews Challenge Shield they play for. So that was a bit of a challenge match they have every year, and it's great that they got up and won the game, Brighton. A good effort. And talk us through the other winners in the SFL, Stoney, before we go to the NTFA. Yeah, the North Hobart were winners. Hobart, Lindisfarne had their second, their only win for 2 years, Dave. So a great effort from Lindisfarne Football Club over Sorrel, Cygnet, and as I said, also Glenorchy. Also for Kingston, Rainbird, who's a good player, Shane, kicked 6 goals, and Ryan, your player, he's on 13 goals for the year, so not a bad effort for Ryan there. Great, and I actually correct myself. It's NTFL that we're going to go to now, and NTFL is a pretty strong league this year, Steve-O, with the former statewide league clubs of the Bombers and the Dockers choosing to go there. Bombers particularly choosing to go there rather than playing the NTFA, and both those sides looking pretty strong. But the footage we've got is from the Penguin South Launceston game, and South Launceston were big winners in this game as well. Who do you see as the strengths up there, Steve-O? Oh, I think the Northern Bombers and Burnie, obviously, coming out of the statewide league competition, are going to be relatively strong. I think Burnie knocked off Ulverston by a decent margin, and I think South Lonnie have also been up there over recent years, so you expect them to be a quality side as well. Shane, Jade Elmer, who's the coach of South Launceston this season, they've gone on a bit of a recruiting coup this year, and got some really good. Cotham's another player who plays for South Launceston, and they'll be up there also. Good to see the Launceston clubs doing quite well. Yeah, well, Cotham was a good goal kicker for the Northern Bombers in the statewide leagues last year, so if they've got him kicking a few goals for them, and Elmer also chipping in, I think they'll be pretty hard to beat. Yeah. Do you think the NTFL is the strongest regional comp?
in Tassie at the moment? It's a controversial question to ask general manager in the SFL. What do you think?
I think, well, it's a bit hard to tell what I haven't seen in the NTFL games, but look, I think the top sides in the SFL, you know, Clarence, ourselves, Brighton, Norfolk would match any side in the NTFL. And, you know, I think that, you know, both competitions be reasonably matched, you'd think, but it is pretty hard to say which would be the strongest comp in the state.
Yeah, interesting that that only a few sides dominating both leagues. I think there's an issue, isn't there, Steve-O, that all these regional leagues are going to be looking to go to a sort of tiered system next year and create more even footy.
Yeah, certainly from our club's point of view, we're looking at going along those lines. You know, you can see the difference between the country clubs and the city clubs, and you know, there's no doubt that it'll certainly go to 2 tiers next year. What that format will be, well, it's anybody's guess, but I think it's something we need to work on now rather than get to the end of the year and start working on it. We need to start planning and get things rolling now.
Which brings us to our favourite topic. Where do you think the Hutchins-Sandy Bay merged side will fit within that scale of things?
Well, I actually only heard that today, but look, I think that's the old Hutchins old boys have been premiers the last couple of years, or probably last year and the year before they were runners up. So they've got a playing list down there and a number of former Sandy Bay players, and you know, if they think they're going to be competitive in a Tier 1 competition, I don't see why not.
Great. NTFA actually started with a big gala day at York Park. We went up to have a look at all of those games, and running through them, we actually saw first up the Georgetown Bridgenorth game here, and Georgetown were just too good for Bridgenorth, and there you see Ingles there kicking a goal for Bridgenorth, but they had a great system on their forward line, Georgetown, and they're going to be also a bit of a force in the NTFA this year, and perhaps one of the teams that may go into the top tier if they tier off as a competition next year. Stoney?
Dale Shug kicked 4 goals and is a synonymous name up in the NTFL, Dale Shug, and did quite well there.
And then we had the Rocherley-Bracknell game. This one was pretty interesting in that Bracknell were up for 2.5 quarters of the game. It was a pretty scrappy game, this one, and Rocherley stuck with them and fought pretty hard and were pretty tough at the ball, and eventually, just before 3/4 time, they got in front and ended up running out winners by 44 points. So it was a big turnaround. And then Scottsdale Uni Mowbray, and Scottsdale have been a really strong club in the north of Tasmania for years and years. And to the surprise of quite a few people around the ground, Uni Mowbray are very big improvers and really stuck with Scottsdale all day through this one. And it was only a 12-point margin, I think, in favour of Scottsdale at the end of the day. And then the best game of the day was the Longford-Hillwood game, and really the standard in this game and across the whole day certainly made myself and cameraman producer Martin Duffy feel that the NTFA is a very, very high standard competition.
And in fact, our cameraman Martin Duffy rang Matthew Armstrong, the VFL coach, and said, "Matthew, I've got 2 Wayne Careys up here playing in the NTFA. Make sure you get up and have a look." So that's how good he was impressed by it. This
was a great game, and the scores were actually tied with about 2 minutes to go, and Longford just edged their way in front and ended up winning by only 2 points on the night, and it was a fantastic way to end what would have been a very high standard day of footy. Great use of the handball, great running play and some strong marking in this game. It was really definitely statewide league standard.
And Mansell kicked 4 for the side there, the Longford side there, Dave.
Well, it was a great day to start the season for the NTFA Gala Day. Now, don't go away. We're going to come back after the break with a little more regional wrap. Welcome back to Football Life. Well, we've been talking up on the panel the NTFL, the NTFA, and what those sides, North Launceston, South Launceston and Launceston, are doing in the NTFL. We caught up with one of the stalwarts of the Launceston Football Club, Brian Clark, and asked him what he thought about the whole issue.
Well, I think it's a great idea that it's got back to that with the 2 associations, and I do hope that eventually it will come to an NTFA as well as an NWFU, so that the Launceston, North Launceston and South Launceston can play other clubs around the area. I'm sure that's the way you'll get the audience, the people coming along, and when you get that, you get people through the gate, you build your canteen up, you build your bar up, and you can support your club and look after your players better. And it's a great idea that we've got a Tasmanian side to all build into. I don't think it's right for Smithton to travel to Launceston and vice versa. But I think, you know, if you play a team like Bridgenorth or somewhere where they'll send 200 or 300 people up and vice versa down there. And I think that football's got to become more regional, and we'll get back to what we used to have. And I do hope that we'll get back to the time where North plays Northwest, Northwest plays South, and South plays North in the great way it used to be.
What do you think it is that's keeping teams like South Launceston, North Launceston and Launceston in the NTFL, which certainly is skewed towards the northwest coast, being Launceston teams?
Well, I think it's a stepping stone. I think that they couldn't do anything else this year until they sorted out what the associations ought to be. And I think that probably next year, I hope, it'll get back to an NTFA and an NWFU.
Great. And now that Tasmania has its own VFL side, will you be going to some of the games?
I'd love to, yes.
What will you be calling out when you're supporting them from the crowd?
Tasmania.
Tassie, Tassie, Tassie? What a great gentleman Brian Clark was. And as we go around the state, we find that often the older the folk are, the more they've got to say, and the better they say it, Stoney.
Definitely, and Brian's a pretty passionate Launceston supporter up there, and had his bit to say, but good on Brian.
It was a great thing. But I also noticed that there was some jeans. There was a trainer running. Here we go, look at this again. This trainer runs onto the ground, Stoney. He's wearing jeans. I don't know if he's got footy boots on.
No, he's got sand shoes on. I don't know if he's got sand shoes on, Dave.
That's not on. That wouldn't happen at Glenorchy, would it, Steve-O?
No, mate, our trainers are very professional, Dave, and that certainly wouldn't happen.
Do you want to have another look at that? Because I don't think he was even wearing particularly fashionable jeans. They're old baggy jeans, aren't they? They're not even 501s or...
He's got a lifeline bin by the look of it.
He's got the sideways action going, but certainly the NTFA and Robert Anderson have got to have a look at that if they want those teams, South Launceston, North Launceston and Launceston, to come back to a professional competition. Anyway, moving right on. Milestones from around the state, Stoney.
Oh, it's a big weekend footy this week, Dave.
Is it?
Newbina and Port Arthur both winners. Newbina, Broughton kicked 6 there. ODFA winners were Kempton, Woodsdale and Oatlands. NEFU, Bridgeport, Rigaruma and Scottsdale winners. Blackwell kicking 7 for Bridport. And the DFA, the Darwin, Somerset, Natone, Queenstown, Yolla and South Burnie, all winners, David.
Fantastic. Heaps of winners right around the state, which brings us to our Letter of the Week segment. And the Letter of the Week this week comes from Karen, Brendan and Declan Toohey. And they say, very impressed with football life. First time I've been able to sit down and watch a fair bit of it. May I suggest, however, greater use of visual detail graphics, i.e. things like a screen with the previous week's regional results, the round of games for each of the leagues and where they're playing at, etc. While you say these things, I think it'd be good to see them on the screen, accommodating the visual learners amongst us too. So now it's time to go to the Karen Brennan and Declan Toohey, who's playing next week graphic. Stoney, in the SFL, I think there is... In fact, Steve-O perhaps can talk us through this. A couple of interesting games there.
Yeah, Norfolk will certainly be too strong for Lindisfarne. Hobart and Brighton will be a good game. I think that'll be fairly close there. Sorrel versus Clarence. Well, Clarence will certainly have a big win there. North Hobart and Lauderdale will be another competitive match. Kingston and Cygnet. Kingston should be too strong for Cygnet. Commandy and Channel played Commandy last week, and I think they should be too strong for Channel. Huonville and Claremont. That should be a good match actually down at Huonville. So. We should see some terrific games in the SFL competition this Saturday. And
perhaps have a look at the NTFL and Stoney. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, well, Penguin and Devonport will be a good game. I think the game, East Devonport, Launceston, Ulverstone, Latrobe, obviously the game on Saturday, the Anzac Cup game there for that game. Smithton and Burnie will be a good game. Deloraine and Wynyard and also the Northern Bombers, South Launceston will also be a good game, do you, David?
Absolutely, and I might talk us through the NTFA, and I reckon the Longford Georgetown game should be a ripper, and the Scottsdale Hillwood as well, all sides that played really, really well on that gala day. So plenty of action right around the state. In the south, you can catch it on the Triple T updates. Stoney?
Yep, Triple T updates all day, yeah, and Saturday and Sunday also, Dave.
And in the north, hook into the Triple S, 88.5, and the boys that are based on top of the grandstand at York Park there, giving you all the action from footy in the north of the state. So, which takes us to the close of this segment. I'd like to thank Steve-O very much for joining us for both the VFL and the regional segment, and wish you all the best for a great year with Glenorchy.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
And don't go away. After the break, Football Culture West Park in Burnie. Welcome back to Football Life. Well, as promised for football culture, we're going to West Park in Burnie for the egg-shaped oval, the notorious bike track and the steak sandwich. York Park is the home of the North Launceston Football Club. Originally established in 1893 as Railway, in 1898 they became Essendon for a year, and then in 1899 North Launceston. They won 23 senior premierships in the NTFA before joining the Statewide League in 1985. They played out in 6 statewide grand finals to become premiers in 95 and 98. In fact, in 98, under the reins of current VFL coach Matthew Armstrong, they became the only statewide league side to ever go through a season undefeated. I believe York Park Oval was originally a tip, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It was a rubbish tip all the way through here, surrounded by swamp.
Surrounded by swamp?
Yeah, hence the name of the Swampies many years ago, so yeah.
People who lived in the North Launceston area were known as Swampies, is that right?
Yeah, and anyone that played with North Launceston was known as the Swampy too.
What was it like when David Rees-Jones came to the club? He's certainly a big personality and a character in footy. What was it like when he first arrived? How did he impress you?
Definitely a character, definitely. Look, David was a great person, different off the field than on the field. You know, he led by example. I think he copped more in Tasmania than what he actually give. But I suppose if you're from North Launceston, you'd probably say that. But no, definitely a good person and a good character.
What are the hardest things about travelling to Burnie and about playing the Burnie side at home, do you think?
Oh, look, you know, definitely today, for instance, under lights tonight, we're a little bit different. The hardest thing is probably the trip home, because the boys like to have a pretty good time on the bus on the way home, and yeah, it's a long trip.
Yeah, our last game actually is against Smithton, and that's, even though it's the last game, it's a good chance for the players to bond very much before the final.
That's actually a Saturday game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we probably won't get back till Monday, Tuesday.
Oh dear.
One of the main issues in statewide footy over the last few years has been travel, and the difficulty this creates for both players and spectators. With a return to regional footy, clubs have the promise of a lot more footy in their local area and a lot less travel. However, North Launceston have made the choice to join both South Launceston and Launceston in the NTFL, which is essentially a northwest coast competition, which means the ritual of travelling back and forth on the team bus is still very much part of their Saturday routine. Gary, you're about to get on the bus at 10:30 in Launceston to make the couple of hour trip to Burnie, and it's going to be a long day. You might be back for about 12 or so hours. What have been some of the issues in making the choice to play in the NTFL and have to travel to the coast quite a bit throughout the year?
Oh, look, I don't think the travel bothers us too much, because the boys have done it all last year and years gone by since the statewide, but our decision was, I think, purely made on that South Launceston and Launceston were in this competition, and they're going to be our arch enemies when we play in the local derbies, so that'll be, you know, we'll get a good crowd, so that had a lot to do with which comp we played in. I enjoyed the bus, so I think it is good for the players. You know, it does get them to know each other, especially on the way home. It's probably that when it's a bit lighter, on the way up it's a little bit relaxed and tense at times. So, but we do get off the bus, have a bit of a stroll around, and you know, about halfway mark, so we get the legs moving, but you know, it's good for the bonding part of the team thing.
After Gary and the boys headed off in their bus, we jumped in our van and joined them for the journey 2 hours further northwest to Burnie. On arrival, we were struck by something which rivalled Triabunna's Woodchip Mountain. It was Burnie's own Everest of pulp. Burnie was originally settled in 1881 as Emu Bay. During its early days, it was surrounded by towering rainforest. Then about 100 years later, it was coloured by the 8 PM paper mill, which employed about 3,000 people during its peak, but today only a few hundred. With the downsizing of 8 PM, the closing of the Toxide factory and other industries, Burnie has been seeking more and more of the tourist dollar. There's plenty to see and taste around the local Burnie area, including the produce here from the local Lactos cheese factory. When you see the lush green pasture and the rolling meadows that surround the Burnie area, you realise it really is great cattle country, and why it produces such good cheese and such tough footballers.
And this game has the potential to higher right up board. Has it moved?
The West Park Oval behind me is the only thing that separates the Bass Highway from the Bass Strait. It's traditionally feared by opposition players and coaches because of its unpredictable winds, its bizarre egg shape, and also because of the notorious West Park bike track, which, like in Queenstown, runs right around the oval. Kevin Wells is a volunteer groundsman at West Park, responsible for setting up the partitioning to surround the wet area of the can bar. He's had a long association with West Park in his early days as a cyclist around the bike track up to the present day as a very keen football volunteer.
Oh yeah, you get a lot of enjoyment when you meet young people. I'm a great believer that if you only associate with old people, you become older.
Okay, yeah.
They frustrate you at times, doesn't it?
Sure.
I do. I probably frustrate them too.
Yeah. Do you get big crowds sometimes here for the can bar?
Oh yeah, yes, at times. Depends on the weather.
Yeah.
If the weather's not real good, well, there's not much open.
No.
Up on the hill.
No, sure. And the wind sometimes in winter, I guess, blows straight off the bat straight across the oval, gets pretty chilly.
Yeah, but that's home.
That's home?
Yeah.
And you were born just up the road, yeah?
Yeah, up North Street.
Yeah. So you've been around Burnie all your life?
Pretty well. I was brought up out of Blythe, now they're called Hay Bridge. But...
And how important is the Burnie Football Club for the community here, and how important is the community for the football club?
Both go hand in hand. I think if no football club, well, what have you got? Not much for the young people. When you see them come out here and they play their game and they enjoy their social life after, and you make a terrific lot of friends through sport. Often wonder how people get on that's never been interested in sport.
I'm standing here on the infamous bike track at West Park Oval in breezy twilight conditions. This is the home of the Burnie Dockers, a club with a very interesting history of amalgamations. The Burnie Football Club was first formed in 1885 and in 1896 began an intense rivalry between Burnie and nearby town Footy. After hating each other on the football field for almost 100 years, in 1987 Footy joined the Statewide League as the Burnie Hawks, and then in an amazing turn of events in 1994 the two clubs merged to become one and played that year as the Burnie Hawks, and from 95 onwards as the Burnie Dockers. The club played off in 2 grand finals, but unfortunately for supporters of both Footy and Burnie, both times they were beaten by Clarence. Just behind us is the bike track, which is reasonably close to the boundary line. Ever been any incidents with the bike track here that you can recall?
No, well, I've been involved for quite a few years and I've never seen any real bad incidents with the bike track. Actually, the line's been marked in a fair way now, and I don't think the players even realise it's there. So
it's a bit different to Queenstown, where depending on who they're playing, they have put the boundary line right on the track.
And I think the bike track might be a bit softer than the gravel at times.
I see the devout man that I know with a ticket in his hand. I see the steadfast man that I know.
Tell us first, Mick, you're in your second year here at Burnie. Tell us about the change coming down from the big smoke, the AFL history that you've had, the great history with the AFL, coming down to a local footy culture. What was that change like for you?
Yeah, I suppose it brought back a lot of childhood memories actually, Dave. Being a country boy myself from Sebastopol in Ballarat, and I always had aspirations, I suppose, to play league footy. Well, obviously you realise those days soon finish, but where you're going to finish, you never know. But I've always wanted to coach, and Burnie Footy Club gave me the opportunity to do that, so I'm really looking forward to that.
The canteen at West Park was the most highly efficient we'd ever seen. While I was very keen for a SAV test, guest star Julian O'Brien insisted on testing Burnie's very famous steak sandwich. In 6 years as a reporter for The Advocate, Julian, how many of these steak sandwiches do you reckon you've had?
I reckon 1 or 2 cows would have disappeared in that time, David. But this is what the supporters really flock to the Burnie canteen for. This is the gourmet treat.
It's an amazing farming area around Burnie, lush green pastures and meadows. Perhaps you and Daryl can take us through the process of the steak sandwich.
Oh, look, Daryl, we've got to start with this lovely piece of steak. You can't go past it. Nice piece of fresh bread and some onion. And no proven cases of mad cow disease.
No mad cow in this stuff, mate, Julian. No, it's for sure, mate.
Well, you better dish us up one, mate, and we'll have a taste.
We can soon do that for you. Would you like a bit of onion? Or
love some.
Burnie onion, grown locally.
Do you want sauce?
Sauce, Julian?
Yes, please.
Pepper, please.
Now, you assure me this is the best piece of steak you've got here today?
Tops, mate.
Lovely.
You can eat false teeth and everything.
Melts in the mouth.
So, Julian, what's the score out of 10 for the steak sandwich?
Well, this is 9.75.
Wow, 9.75. What a great achievement by the canteen. Burnie kicked into the wind in the first quarter but made best use of the conditions to kick 3 straight goals to the Northern Bombers 3 goals too. In the second quarter it was all Burnie. Although captain Errol Bourne was felled and taken from the ground, Burnie used greater system and running play to be 5 goals clear at the half-time break. In the third quarter the Bombers bounced back, but Burnie managed to bottle up play in the coastal wing, and although the Bombers put on a couple of great goals, Burnie went to the 3-quarter time break with an 18-point lead.
Tonight on Football Life we're talking with Sylvia Smith, who's a member of the Tasmanian Upper House and also the president of the Northern Bombers Football Club. The boys are fighting back here in the last quarter, Sylvia. It's been a tough night for them, but they keep coming back. There's still probably a chance.
Well, there's always a chance. It's never over till the fat lady sings, and I haven't sung yet.
The fat lady did sing in the final quarter, and Burnie consolidated to run out winners 15-12, 102, Northern Bombers 11-16, 82.
The Dockers starting to kick clear.
Then it was back to the club rooms to celebrate what had been a great day for Burnie, winning the underage, reserves and seniors games. In the club rooms, I met up with Burnie's own NTFL Queen Quest entrant Jessica Young, and then learned from some of the younger guys in the club the ins and outs of the meat tray, before bidding farewell to what had been a great day and night in Burnie.
A big thank you to Hobart band The Robinsons for their music used throughout football culture in that segment, and also to Tas Kino for their continued support of football culture. You would have been pretty jealous of that steak sandwich, Stoney.
David, 9.75 is too much for me. I've got to come out next time. But there's only one more thing, Dave, I've got to say. King Island, Flinders Island, we want to come. So if you can get me there, give me a call at Football Tas, and I'll be glad to come along. The boys will be glad to come along in footy culture.
There you go, a couple of great options for the future. Don't go away. After the break, John X, Footy versus Athletics. Welcome back to Football Life. Well, there are a lot of recreational pursuits around, from badminton through to politics, but we believe, as the song goes, when you line them up together, footy wins hands down. This week, John X goes to the Hobart Athletics Centre to find out why some people choose athletics over footy.
Well, we're here on a beautiful Sunday, Tasmanian afternoon. We're at the Athletics Centre. There's a whole lot of people here, there's a whole lot of cars. We're about to find out what's going on. We don't know what. We were driving by, they gave us one of these, the loud hailer. So you can talk like this, and one of these to wave. It says Telstra Athletics. We'll find out just exactly what's going on. We'll just ask the guy on the box here. Excuse me, sir, what is going on today in here?
The Telstra Athletics Grand Prix.
A nice finishing spread, but Lauren Hewitt has it covered. And another good win for Lauren Hewitt.
What about football? Do you like football?
My husband does.
Yeah? Does that mean you don't?
That means that I don't have a lot of spare time to sit down and watch football.
Why have you taken up athletics instead of football?
Oh, I mean, it's basically been a love of mine since I was a young kid. I did Little Ass from the age of 5, and I don't know why hurdling, but everyone asks me why hurdling, but I think just the challenge of hurdles. It's you got to combine sprinting with technique and explosive training as well. So I like trying to get all those things right at the same time.
What don't you like about football?
No, it's boring.
It's boring?
Yes, it's boring. Just like cricket.
Don't you think football is a better sport?
No.
Would you call athletics a sport?
Absolutely.
Yeah, even though there's no ball?
Oh, yeah.
Even though a lot of the events sort of don't last longer than, like, Cole Vanderkuyp was running today the 110-metre hurdles and he 13 seconds.
Yep.
That's enough for you?
That's enough.
It's not a sport, it's not on a field, it's not with a team, it's very individual. So yeah, it's track and field, it's very individual.
What do you like about football?
The shorts.
The good-looking guys.
Now, would you get a footballer to sign your shirt?
No.
Would you maybe like to see a bit of contact, football sort of contact put into hurdles? Like, you can stick the arm out at the sort of, at the 50-metre mark and sort of knock someone down if they look like they're going to beat you?
It's actually it's a good question, because hurdles does have a bit of contact sometimes. You get a few guys that arms fly, and you get maybe an arm in the chest or a hand in the chest, or sometimes the feet and hands go everywhere. So, I mean, there is a bit of contact. Some guys fall sometimes. You've got to dodge the guys that fall. So, I mean, maybe a bit of footy skills is in that.
You see more here.
Why is that? Is it because you're closer? Why is it? Why do you see more here?
We have short attention spans.
Oh, is that right? Is that just you or women in general? You prefer football to athletics or other way around?
No, other way around.
Why is that?
Oh, I just come from the athletics background, so football, the umpiring keeps me fit during the winter.
Why do the guys shave their legs in athletics? To look good, or does it actually help with the speed?
Wind resistance, yeah. But I noticed last night the Hawthorn players had their three-quarter tops on. I thought that looked pretty stylish.
I suppose athletics keeps you fit enough to run away from the abuse on the football field.
That's about it.
Thanks, mate. Have a good day.
Not a problem. Can we sell you a hamburger?
Oh, yeah, I don't see why not. How much are they?
$2.
Oh, he's got me now. I've got to buy a hamburger. Yeah, I'll have a hamburger, thanks. Could I have some onion on that?
Yeah.
How much was that again? $2?
Well, great to see that even at the athletics contest you can still taste a hamburger. But John X, for some reason, seems to interview 95% females. Not quite sure why that is, but there it was. Footy versus athletics. I think next week we might be looking at footy versus politics. Don't go away. After the break, football development, Auskick and the Mariners. Welcome back to Football Life, and it's a big thank you to Pacific Car Rental for supporting Footy Versus. But we're talking football development now, and it's a big welcome to the panel. Craig Funky Miller, who's going to talk to us all about the Auskick.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for joining us, Craig. Tell us about Auskick, and it works right across the state. How many people are involved across the state?
Dave, there's approximately 2,500 youngsters ranging from the ages of 5 to 12 years of age in the Auskick program, and basically it's an introductory program to Australian rules football. So the kids will go through all the various skills that are involved in the game, and then at the end of their lesson they move into a modified rules game or football to practice all the skills that they've learnt during that lesson.
But it's not the competitive sort of game side of it isn't the focus of it. It's a skills-based thing, and there's no rough tackling or anything like that?
No, as I said, it concentrates exclusively on the skills of the game. So there's no physical contact involved, no bumping or tackling or any of those aspects of the game. But it just gives the kids a chance to practice their skills in a safe environment, and then, as I said, put them into practice in a modified rules game.
Now, Craig, there's two questions I've got. Schools have taken the program on board as part of their curriculum, so to speak. And also, there's a new Auskick commercial coming out, or it's out at the moment, and it's quite good, actually, quite funny. David?
Oh, here we go. We've got the. Now, what's this granny doing on a commercial for football, Funky?
I think it's the old, the old syndrome of the cat up the top of the tree and relying on the firefighters, but this time they're not around, so they've got the young footballers.
Honing their skills, Craig.
The young fella gently boots the cat out of the tree with a footy. That's lovely, isn't it? Someone takes a big grab, moves the handball on, and granny cops it. It's great to see.
It's Nathan Buckley and Anthony Kitterfeed watching on, David. So two better players you couldn't find there, Craig.
Exactly.
All ends happily ever after, and that's what Auskick's all about. Another great thing, girls can be involved as well. It's not exclusively for boys, which is great.
They encourage both boys and girls to participate in the program, and you know, there's a number of girls across Tasmania playing in the program at the moment. Hopefully that over the next few years that continue to grow.
And maybe feed into the Mariners and then the VFL side.
It'd be nice.
We'll see how that goes. And talking about Mariners, Stoney, the boys got very close in their game last weekend. It's looking better and better for the boys.
Dave, Craig, talking to Martin King, the coach of the Mariners, the Metro Tassie Mariners last week, he thought that the game last week versus the Northern Knights was probably their best game for the year. They were unlucky to lose the game, very wet conditions. And, you know, this week versus the Eastern Rangers on Saturday at 12 o'clock over in Melbourne. Let's hope the boys come up and play. And look, have a look at the ins here. Laycock, McMichael, McIver, Millhouse, and none of the players in. Out.
No one, so it's an enormous bench of about 12 players.
Let's have a look at the side now. And Craig, some very good players. Brooks and Egan are good players. Millhouse, Rick, as I've always said. Derbyshire, the new player into the side there. But last week, two players that Martin thought that needed mention, David, was Will Harvey and Brett Robinson, a 15 and 16-year-old player. Two players coming in the squad, and very good players also, Dave. So look out for them. They'll win their first game, I reckon, today, I should say. Eastern Rangers in Melbourne, Dave.
At Box Hill.
At Box Hill, certainly are.
Fantastic stuff. And heading towards the end of the show today, but the Football Life magazine, we're not just a football show, we're also a football magazine, and this is a great publication. I believe can be purchased for the very first time at Ulverston Oval tomorrow. And then at newsagents everywhere?
Certainly is, Dave. $3.95 to get your new magazine, The Football Life. Not only the show, the magazine now, David, at Ulverston tomorrow. Also 350 newsagents, as you said, next week. And what a great Football Life magazine. Mate, have a look at it. It's got a lot of things, football, and a few other interesting things also, Dave.
I believe there's a big special on our friend Coley and his family, and the Joker returns or something like that?
Yeah, Anthony Cole is in it. And David Wood, the properties boy at Football Tas, and I couldn't call him Bill because he's a man, actually, David. But a great story, and everything's great reading in the book.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Funky, and good luck for yourself in your continued footy throughout the year and playing for the side. We come to the end of the show now, but don't forget if you're in the North West Coast or anywhere in the state, and you can get to the Ulverston Oval tomorrow for the big game against the Murray Kangaroos. Get down and support the guys. It's a big goodbye from us on Football Life. Join us next week, Win Television at 12 midday, Football Life.